After the funeral, my sweet-talking brother handed me the will to sign, but I noticed our mother's name was written in two different inks. My mother passed away, leaving behind an old apartment and a mountain of debt. My brother Leo just wanted to sell everything off and be done with it. I was about to sign the papers until I found her journal. The last pages were not written in her usual hand. They were written in code. Our mother's lawyer then revealed an unbelievable truth. Our mother was a secret millionaire, but her will was even stranger. A vast fortune locked away by two keys, and my brother and I each held one. Neither of us could act without the other. Leo believed he was about to get everything. He called me every day, his voice sickeningly sweet. He did not know that I had found another secret among her old papers, a secret about a house that had disappeared, and a debt that was never mentioned. Now, we are at the bank. Leo has just put his pen to a document he did not even read. He thinks it is the inheritance paperwork. But I know it is a confession, and I am about to be the one to read it aloud. I had just returned from my mother's funeral. The house felt hauntingly empty. The scent of lilies from the cemetery still clung to my black dress, a scent so sweet it was painful. I had not even had a moment to sit, to breathe, to truly let the grief sink in, before my phone rang. The name Leo lit up the screen. A familiar weariness washed over me. I answered. "Hello. Have you called the lawyer, Sophia, yet?" His voice came through, sharp and practical, as if we were closing a business deal, not mourning the mother we had just buried. Not a single word of condolence. Not a moment of hesitation. We need to liquidate that apartment quickly. I need capital for my new project. My ears were ringing. A new project. It was always a new project. I gripped the phone tighter, feeling a slow-burning anger begin to smolder beneath my exhaustion. "Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, I replied, my voice so flat it surprised even me. I hung up before he could say another word. The next morning, Leo and I sat in Sophia's office. The space was elegant and quiet, but I felt suffocated. Leo could not sit still, his polished leather shoe tapping impatiently against the floor. He was anxious. I just wanted to disappear. Sophia, my mother's best friend, looked at us with sad eyes. She placed a thin file on the polished oak desk. "According to Isabel's will," she began, her voice low and warm, "her assets include the apartment at 14 Victor Hugo Street and an outstanding mortgage." Silence filled the room. I heard Leo let out a short, dry scoff, a sound filled with such contempt it cut my ears like broken glass. "Unbelievable!" He leaned back in his chair, shaking his head. "Her whole life. She never amounted to anything. Now even her legacy is a pile of debt." He said it right in front of Sophia. A naked insult. I felt my cheeks flush with shame and anger on my mother's behalf. "Leo!" I snapped, my voice a clear warning. He ignored me, his defiant gaze fixed on Sophia. "So what now?" "Sell. Sell it immediately." Sophia remained remarkably calm, though I saw her hands clench beneath the desk. She pushed a paper toward us. "This is the power of attorney to proceed with the sale. I need signatures from both of you." Leo snatched the pen as if it were a prize. He scribbled a decisive, messy signature and shoved the paper toward me. "Sign it, Clara. Let's just end this." I stared at the document. Leo's signature looked like a scar on the clean white page. Below it, an empty space waited for me. Everything inside me screamed in protest. To sign this was not just to sell an apartment. It was to be complicit in his heartlessness, to put a cold, final period on our mother's life. I looked up and met Sophia's waiting gaze. For a fleeting moment, I saw something different in her eyes. It was not pity, it was a challenge. A vague but intense feeling of unease crept over me. I knew this story could not end so simply. In the end, I signed the paper. My hand was ice cold, and I felt as if I had just agreed to something deeply wrong. Leo left immediately, a satisfied look on his face, without another word. In the days that followed, I returned to our mother's apartment alone to begin the task of clearing it out. I had to do it, even though I did not want to. While sorting through an old wardrobe, my hand brushed against a small tin box, hidden deep beneath a stack of blankets. It was locked. A flicker of curiosity broke through my fatigue. I found a small knife and pried the lock open. Inside there was no jewelry, but an old, leather-bound journal. I recognized my mother's handwriting. I sat down on the floor and began to turn the pages. The first entries were filled with familiar, everyday thoughts. But as I got closer to the end, the content became strange. Instead of personal reflections, there were cryptic notes, strings of numbers that looked like stock tickers, investment terminology, and one name circled over and over again: Project Phoenix. I was completely baffled. My mother, a woman who spent her whole life as a homemaker, had a project with a name like that. The contradiction was too great to ignore. I kept turning the pages, and then something solid fell from between them. It was a single, brightly polished metal key, intricately crafted. I recognized it immediately as the type used for a safe deposit box at a bank, the dual control kind, requiring both authorized individuals to be present to open it. I clutched the key in my hand, the cold metal seeping into my skin. Everything began to connect in my mind. The investment notes, the name Project Phoenix, and this dual key. It was clear my mother had left behind a secret that, somehow, involved both Leo and me, and I knew I had to find out what it was. I could not shake the questions swirling in my head. The very next morning, I took the journal and the key to Sophia's office. I placed them both on her desk. Sophia looked at them, then at me. She did not seem surprised. Instead, she let out a long sigh, one that held both exhaustion and relief. "I was wondering when you would find these," she said, her voice softening. "Your mother, Isabel, anticipated this. She was far more complex than you children ever knew." She picked up the journal, flipping to the last few pages. Isabel was not just a homemaker, Clara. She was a brilliant investor, but she always kept it a secret. Project Phoenix was the name she gave to the entire investment portfolio she had been quietly building for decades. My head spun. My mother? An investor? The simple image I had of her began to fracture. But then another question, tinged with anger, pushed its way forward. "Then why?" I asked directly. "Why did you tell us the other day that her only legacy was a mortgaged apartment? Why the charade?" Sophia looked at me, her expression a mix of sympathy and resolve. "Clara, you have to understand. Your mother was not testing you from beyond the grave. She did this because she knew you both so well while she was alive. This was her final plan." She explained slowly. "Your mother knew exactly how Leo would react if he thought there was nothing of value to gain. She knew he would show his impatience and his disdain. The announcement about the indebted apartment was not a test for the deceased, it was proof for the living. She wanted you, and me, to witness Leo's true nature when there was no profit to mask it." Her explanation hit me like a bolt of lightning. I was stunned. I remembered Leo's attitude, his frustration, his disrespectful words. It had all been part of our mother's design. Sophia pushed a new file toward me. It was the real last will and testament. "And this is the next phase of the plan," she said. "Your mother also knew that you are sentimental but often too accommodating. She did not want to leave behind a legacy where Leo could easily steamroll you." I read the carefully typed words as Sophia explained each clause. "First," she said, pointing to a paragraph, "the will clearly states, all assets held within the investment portfolio, Project Phoenix, shall be divided equally, 50-50, between my two children, Clara and Leo. Legally, your shares are identical." She paused. "However," she continued, "the crucial clause is here. Second, Access to the bank's safe deposit box, where all valuable documents are stored, requires the consent and simultaneous signatures of both heirs Clara and Leo. Sophia looked me straight in the eye. What does this mean, Clara? It means that if one of you does not agree, the other can do nothing. Your mother intentionally created a stalemate. She did not choose an heir. She gave you, the daughter she trusted, power equal to Leo's. She trusted that you would use that power to find a fair solution, not to seek revenge. I understood everything. This was not just a will. It was a perfectly designed mechanism built on a deep understanding of human nature. My mother had used the first act of the play to expose Leo's greed, and the following clauses to give me the strength to confront it. Power and responsibility, all contained in a single clause, and I knew, given Leo's greed, the battle had only just begun. I left Sophia's office feeling the weight of the key in my coat pocket. It was not just metal, it was the power and responsibility my mother had given me. I knew I could not delay the confrontation. That evening, I called Leo. I need to see you, I said, getting straight to the point. There has been a change regarding Mom's will. We met at a neutral coffee shop. Leo arrived with his usual impatient expression. I did not waste time, placing a copy of the real will on the table between us. Mother did not leave behind a debt, I announced. She left behind a very large fortune, Leo. Leo's eyes widened. Disbelief quickly gave way to an unmistakable gleam of greed. He leaned forward, not asking why our mother had hidden it, but asking about the numbers. As I mentioned stocks and real estate, he began talking non-stop. Fantastic! I knew it, he said, his voice brimming with excitement. We will sell everything. I have a cryptocurrency opportunity right now. The returns could be tenfold. He was lost in his get-rich-quick schemes, completely ignoring our mother's notes on safe, long-term investments that I had shown him. I let him talk, my disappointment growing with every word. There is one condition, Leo, I interrupted as he finished a sentence. He waved his hand dismissively, a smile still on his face. What condition? It is a 50-50 split, the lawyer made that clear. That is right, I replied, looking him directly in the eye. But the will also makes it clear that to open the safe deposit box, we need both of our signatures. At the same time, the smile faded from Leo's lips. He leaned back in his chair, his expression shifting from excitement to suspicion. What are you trying to say? I am saying, I explained, that Mom gave each of us veto power over the other. If I do not agree to sign, you get nothing. His suspicion quickly curdled into anger. Are you threatening me, Clara? Do you want more than 50%? I shook my head. I do not want more. But I will not sign anything until I find out the truth behind all of this. I need to know why our mother lived as if she had nothing. I had officially declared war. The war our mother had arranged for us, and I was not going to back down. After our meeting at the coffee shop, Leo's attitude changed completely. He called me every day, his voice unusually sweet. The crude pressure was gone, replaced by cajoling words, painting a picture of a bright future for both of us. Just sign, Clara, he would say over the phone, and all our worries will be over. I will take care of you. You will never have to think about money again. The more he promised, the more my suspicion grew. The complete 180 in his attitude was too artificial to be believed. It made me more determined to find answers about our mother's years of frugal living. That weekend, I dedicated myself to systematically organizing all of our mother's old papers. I was not looking for anything specific, just trying to piece together her life through old bills and letters. And then, in a yellowed file box, I found it. It was a thick file, bundled with old tax documents. It had nothing to do with Project Phoenix. The title was for a company called Leo Ventures, one of my brother's failed business projects from years ago. I almost set it aside. But as I flipped through the pages, my heart stopped. Inside was a debt settlement agreement, court filings, and a property transfer deed. I read it over and over, unable to believe what I was seeing. The horrifying truth came into focus. Leo had not just failed, he had deceived. He had convinced our mother to co-sign a business loan, making her liable for his company's massive debt. To save Leo from bankruptcy and potential prison time, our mother had done something she had never told me about. She had sold our childhood home in the countryside. I had always thought she sold it because she did not have time to maintain it. A harmless lie. But it was not. She had sacrificed the family home, a place full of memories, to save her son. A lump formed in my throat. I rushed back to my mother's journal, flipping to the entries from that period. And I found it. A short, single line, written in a trembling hand on the very day the house sale was finalized. I have lost the house, but I hope I have saved my son's soul. Tears began to fall down my cheeks. My mother had been wrong. She had sacrificed everything, but she had not saved his soul. Leo had not changed. He had hidden this truth for all these years. He had let our mother live a meager life that he himself had caused. And now, he was continuing the act, calling me with sweet promises to get his hands on what was left. His greed was not a mistake. It was a bottomless pit, and I knew I could not let him drag our mother's final legacy down with him. After discovering the truth, I stopped answering Leo's calls. My silence seemed to make him even more anxious. Finally, after a week, I sent him a short text message. Monday, 9 a.m. Central Bank. I had agreed. Leo arrived at the meeting point in his finest suit, his face a mask of poorly concealed triumph. He believed my silence was a sign of surrender. As we walked through the Grand Bank lobby, he draped an arm around my shoulders in a show of false camaraderie. "See, I told you," he whispered. "As long as we cooperate, everything will be fine. I will not forget you, little sister." I said nothing, simply shrugging his arm off. We were escorted to a secure deposit room in the basement. The air was cold, and the heavy thud of the steel door closing behind us sent a shiver down my spine. A stern-faced bank employee was waiting for us. He pushed a large metal box to the center of the room. "Sir, madam," he said in a monotone voice, "before we proceed to open Mrs. Isabel's safe deposit box, regulations require both co-heirs to sign this document." He placed a carefully bound set of papers on the metal table. Leo stepped forward immediately, as if afraid I would beat him to it. Of course, just a formality. He took the pen and, without a single glance at the contents, scrawled a confident signature on the final line. He pushed the document toward me, the smile on his face almost a sneer. "Your turn, Clara. Sign it and let's get this over with." I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment our mother had orchestrated. I picked up the document, but I did not sign it right away. I calmly turned to the first page. I could feel Leo's impatience radiating beside me. I looked at the text. The title was simple and innocuous. Co-heir agreement. Addendum to the will of Isabel. It was perfectly drafted, every word legally sound. I turned each page, pretending to read it carefully, though in truth, I had already memorized it. I was just waiting for Leo's arrogance to reach its absolute peak, right before it shattered. Leo started pacing. "What is taking you so long? It is just standard clauses." I ignored him, continuing to turn the pages slowly. My hand skimmed over clauses about asset division and tax obligations. It all looked perfectly normal. But I knew what I was looking for. My heart beat faster as I reached the final page. And then I saw it. It was not prominent, just a small clause, numbered at the very end, looking like a standard legal footnote. But its content was anything but standard. This was the brilliant trap that my mother and Sophia had set. A final test, not of love but of prudence and honesty. I kept my voice steady and looked up at Leo. "Leo, did you read this part?" I asked, pointing my finger at the clause. He gave it a cursory glance. What? Reimbursement clause? Just a bunch of legal jargon. Sign it, Clara. I think you should read it carefully, I said, my voice firm. Annoyance flashed across Leo's face. He snatched the document from my hands and bent over to read it with a dismissive air. I watched him. I saw his eyes scan the words quickly, then stop. He read it again, more slowly. And then he read it aloud, his voice stammering in disbelief. By signing this document, the co-heirs confirm they have read and understood the entirety of the original will and all attached addenda. Any heir with outstanding debts to or having previously caused financial loss to the testator, Isabel, which have not been repaid, the portion of the inheritance belonging to that heir shall be automatically and fully transferred to the other co-heir as compensation for the aforementioned losses. When he finished the last sentence, his head snapped up. The smugness on his face had vanished, replaced by sheer panic. He stared at his own signature at the bottom of the page, then at me, his eyes wide with horror. He understood. The massive debt our mother had paid for him all those years ago, the sale of our childhood home, that was the financial loss which had not been repaid. He had signed a document acknowledging it. He had signed away his entire inheritance to me. The silence in the cold room became so heavy you could cut it with a knife. Leo stared at the clause, then at his signature. His breathing grew ragged, his face turning pale. No, he whispered, shaking his head, unable to accept it. No, this is a trap. He looked up at me, his eyes wild with anger and panic. It was you. You and her. He pointed toward the door, as if Sophia were standing right behind it. You two set me up. Nobody set you up, Leo, I said, my voice terrifyingly calm. You walked right into it yourself. Your own arrogance and greed signed that paper without reading it. You sealed your own fate. This is illegal. This is completely illegal, he screamed, his voice cracking. He fumbled for his phone, his fingers trembling as he tried to dial. I'm calling my lawyer. I will sue you both. The bank employee, who had been silent until now, spoke with professional detachment. Sir, this document was prepared by Mrs. Isabel's legal counsel and has been properly notarized. Your signature was provided willingly and is legally effective immediately. The phone slipped from Leo's hand, clattering onto the stone floor. He collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands. The shouting stopped, replaced by heavy, gasping breaths. The entire world he had been imagining just minutes before the new car, the penthouse, the massive profits had all turned to smoke. He had not just lost half a fortune, he had lost everything. I stood there, looking at him, my only brother, now completely broken. I did not feel triumphant. I did not feel victorious. I only felt a cold emptiness. My mother had been right not to trust him, but the price of this lesson was devastatingly high. I did not say another word. I turned and nodded to the bank employee. Proceed with opening the box, I said. It is my property now. I walked out of the room, leaving Leo alone with his ruin. I did not look back. The war was over, but I was not the winner. I was just the survivor. I walked out of that secure deposit room, leaving Leo to drown in the wreckage of his own making. The heavy steel door boomed shut behind me, sounding like a final, definitive end to a long and painful chapter of my life. I did not look back. I knew that from that moment on, we were no longer a family in any way I had once understood. In the weeks that followed, I had no contact with him. I only heard news through Sophia. Leo had tried to find a lawyer to sue, but no one would take the case. The document was too airtight, his signature too clear. He had closed every door himself. I felt no satisfaction. Instead, a cold emptiness settled in. I had won, but the victory tasted bitter. I had gained an entire fortune, but I had also lost my only brother. Or perhaps the truth was that I had lost him a long time ago, and it was only now that I was brave enough to admit it. A few months later, the Isabel Foundation office. Day. My mother's old apartment was completely transformed. The faded yellow walls were now a bright, clean white. The old furniture had been replaced with simple, tidy desks. It was no longer a home, but the office of the Isabel Foundation, a small charity I established with the entire inheritance, dedicated to helping single-parent families facing financial hardship. I stood by the window, looking down at the familiar street, holding a warm cup of coffee. The oppressive feeling was gone, replaced by a sense of peace and a new purpose. I did not need a luxury car or a penthouse. My mother's legacy had given me something far more valuable: the chance to make a difference. The phone in my pocket vibrated gently. A text message from an unknown number. I opened it. It was a photograph. A man in dirty work clothes, his face thin and tanned by the sun, was sitting on a pile of bricks at a construction site, taking a break. Though the image was slightly blurry, I recognized him instantly. It was Leo. Beneath the photo was a single short line of text, with no punctuation. "I am sorry." I stared at the screen for a long time. Those 3 words. The 3 words I had waited years to hear, but now that they had arrived, I felt nothing. No forgiveness, no sympathy, and certainly no joy. His apology was too late. It could not erase the years our mother had to live in poverty. It could not heal the scar his betrayal had left on my soul. I took a deep breath. I did not reply. I simply held my finger on the screen and selected delete. His ending was not decided by me. It was not decided by our mother. It was the price he had to pay, a price determined by his own greed and arrogance. I put my phone down and turned back to my work. Outside, life went on, and for the first time I felt I was truly ready to move forward with it.